Yes.
If you want the white chair, I can grab it now because nobody's using it.
Sure. Hello. My name is Cameron, and hello. Thank you. All right, fancy chair. Okay. Sorry. Canva. I always try to choose a fun one so that my presentations are more exciting. But anyways, my name's Cameron Stribe. I graduated, I guess, last spring, and I was in the Shell. I was a director of events, and after graduating, I decided to hike the Appalachian Trail, which was kind of crazy. So, yeah. Firstly, what is the Appalachian Trail, or AT? That's the symbol, and I'll probably be referring to it as AT just because it's a mouthful. Um, it's 2,197.4 miles, at least the year that I did it, but it fluctuates every year based off of like reroutes and trail maintenance and things like that. It usually takes 4 to 7 months. I did it in like 4 months and 22 days. But you know, it depends on people's goals and everything. Um, the elevation, it's a lot. I don't know how to conceptualize that, but apparently it's like 80 Empire State Buildings or something like that. Um, and it's 14 states, a bunch of shelters, which are like wooden gazebos, and a bunch of different ecosystems that you're going through. So like swamps and like I don't know all the names of the ecosystems, but like rainforests and everything. Um, and it's the longest continuous one of them. I think it is the longest, but maybe it's not. It's one of the longest continuously marked footpaths in the world. There's a map. I went north to south, which only about 10% of people who do the AT go that direction. Most people go the other way just because it kind of gets easier. Well, it gets harder when you go north versus like it getting easier as you go south, but it allows people to get more strength as they're going rather than being smacked down into the rough parts. The history, this man, Benton Mackay, is kind of known as the grandfather of the Appalachian Trail, and he wanted people to connect with nature and get away from the cities and stuff. It was mainly made by volunteers, and it was roughly completed, but like people would mainly just go out and hike on like weekends in certain parts. But in 1968, it was like nationally designated to be preserved and well taken care of, and eventually it became known for the actual through hike when some crazy guy did it, and then it became really popular. But these are some pictures of people clearing out trees and roots and stuff. This is people carrying the sign up to the top of Mount Katahdin in Maine, and same deal, people doing labor on the trail. But they're all pretty much volunteers. Why did I do that? Because I'm not getting any younger, and neither are you guys. It is really kind of the best time to do something crazy like that because at this age, for the most part, not speaking for everyone, I'm gonna right immediately after graduating, it was kind of easy to get away from a job. I didn't have an apartment or a husband or kids or pets that I was responsible for. So it's a lot easier to do something like this versus probably in a few years when I have a job or an apartment, not kids. And for me, it allowed me to kind of not only offload like anxiety of jobs, but what I meant by that is that when you graduate, it seems like there's kind of a harsh deadline to get a job that is just something, but I felt after graduating, I could take more time to apply for jobs and pick one that I was better suited for rather than just finding a job right away and getting to work, which I'm doing now, which is cool. And as far as I'm concerned, the job market isn't going anywhere. That's controversial. But, and lastly, I wanted to do it because my dad did it, and he seemed to always talk about it, and I knew it from him. Pros of going south or north. When you go south, there's more community and a lot more hikers around you, but with that comes disease and crowds and just trash, and it's just a lot less well maintained. But when you go north, or kind of the south, people are known as southbounders or northbounders, so the southbounders are the people going, yeah, but I kind of got that mixed up. But the people who are going north are the crowd, and then the people going south, you have a lot more alone time and space, but it can get kind of lonely, and there's less culture seeing people every single day. You can kind of just see people once in a while. Budget, it's generally recommended plan to have about $1,000 per month. You can do it for way less than that, but some people do it for way more, which is known as platinum blazing. It's pretty cheap compared to other traveling, like compared to going to like a week-long trip in Europe. You could go for like a few months living in the woods because your main expenses are really just your initial gear, but once you're there, it's just food, drinks, and like hostels, which you can save a lot of money not staying in, but some of them are pretty iconic and fun, but even $40 per night in a hostel. Some of them are free too. Planning, I had a spreadsheet with gear, but really it's not that helpful when like you're out there. The best thing to do is like go and test things, but I had the weight of my items, the price, and their like volume, how much space they take up in a backpack. I generally didn't want to like have a huge amount of weight on my back, but it was easier to kind of worry about that later and like shed stuff out. And then also planning, which I kind of messed up, was like getting passes for going to the starting point. Training, I said NA because a lot of people do other hiking. I had experience as like a distance runner, but I had no real experience backpacking. I set up my tent in my yard a few times and tried my stove out. But especially if you're going northbound and starting in like easier terrain, you can kind of just work up to higher mileage and get stronger as you go. That being said, you should probably go and test out your gear, get comfortable, things like that. How was I navigating? There's an app most people use. There's a few other apps, but it's called Far Out. You can kind of set routes, which are what those are, and then like see it visually from the top or through elevation. I don't know what that's. Oh, that's just a screenshot from their website. And then it shows you pictures if you want to see like that's a shelter, and it'll tell you how far away from it. There's a GPS feature, which actually for my first week did not know that existed. So I was just going off of pictures and things like that. But after a while, I realized they could actually just pinpoint me exactly where I was. So that was nice. Live and learn. There's also these white blazes marked every 200 feet or so down the trail. And so that can help. But sometimes they're easy to lose, surprisingly.
Connection issues with the GPS system?
Phone service was really spotty, pretty much in Maine, and like the north in general was like just more rural as far as service, at least for AT&T. Me and Tina, I hiked with my best friend Tina. We shared a Garmin satellite device for in case of emergencies, which is kind of sketchy. Like I never had it on my possession, so like I was kind of relying on the fact that she would be around. That always worked. You have to pay a subscription for it. Phone service I could get on top of mountains or sometimes at like a road crossing, but road crossings were more of a thing later on. In Maine, that was just non-existent. Mount Katahdin was my start point. It's the highest point in Maine. It's considered to be the hardest singular mountain, and it's day 0. The start of the trail is at the top. I kind of went, there's 2 ways to get to the top, up 8 Ball Trail and up Knives Edge, and no one really goes up Knives Edge because it's just really hard and scary, and it's kind of logistically hard unless you have someone drop you off on the other side. Most people drop off their packs, like day hike to the top of Katahdin and then go back down. But I started from, I guess, the other side of the mountain. And that's Tina. There's a lot of cliffs. This is actually like what you climb up for the most of it. And this is like the scariest day for the most part, and that's the top. I was lucky to have a really clear day. It's usually rainy and snowy and cloudy. My water source was usually natural springs, ideally, but there were also a lot of streams or even ponds. I mainly just use like a water filter, like that filters with like physical materials. And then there are also chemical water filters, but those kind of taste weird, and I kind of just use those in case of emergencies when there was some really sketchy water source that I thought was going to be bad.
How do you find a spring?
Springs are also marked on the Far Out app, and usually there are signs like on the trail that just has like a blue arrow, and the blue blazes are usually water or like a side trail. Resupply was sometimes you walk straight through towns, but in the north that was really rare. So along the trail, hitchhiking is super common and kind of necessary, which is why I was lucky to have a friend with me, especially just for safety as a woman. That made me feel more reassured. But it's kind of really well known in the towns that you go through that like the people are really welcoming to hikers and kind of know the whole deal, and they're not like sketched out by it. So usually they're pretty normal. There were like a few like interesting folks, but all of them were pretty nice. For food, you always would try to go for the lightest weight, most calorie dense food, and which was kind of strange, and usually it's not very nutritious. I had one friend who only lived off of blocks of sharp cheddar cheese and peanut butter M&Ms because it was the highest like calorie, highest protein, and lowest weight. And I tried it for a week. It was crazy. But some people mail things, but that can be logistically really hard because of days of the week, hours, holidays, and just like mix-ups. I lost a lot of mail, and I just stopped messing around with that after a while. And then the first part of the trail when you go southbound is the 100-mile wilderness. And this for me was the craziest part because it's the longest stretch of land with no outside contact or roads or towns. So for people like me who are just starting, it takes about a week to 10 or so days. People who are finishing that usually go through faster because they've hiked for like 6 months. So for me that was really scary because I was like, I could break my leg and die out here, whatever. Like we would go days without seeing anyone. There were a lot of river crossings. Maine has beautiful water sources. Yeah, the bugs, they'd like to say, are the state bird of Maine. And not only mosquitoes attacking you all the time, but these little tiny gnat eye bugs, and they just swarm straight into your eyeballs, which is odd. And in the mornings, there's spider webs across the trail, and you walk like this with your hiking sticks to knock them down. This was a pretty gourmet meal for me. Backpacking meals like that are pretty expensive, so I would have them kind of rarely, and in the first week or so when I could like fly with them just because I could bring them from home. And then this is like a logbook I had written. I said I'm super hungry, just passing through for lunch, and off to I don't even know, but 5 more miles. And then I said today we played Feathered Indians, which is a song that I like. And we had really weird traditions like that where some days we would try to make the day really stick. We had a theory that if we played the same song like 10 times a day that we could hear that song and associate it with where we were at the time. So we did that for the first 2 weeks until it was crazy. And yeah, it's really cool because you can see people writing in the book ahead of you and not know who they are until like a month later you'll meet them and be like, I've been reading about you for months. And it was funny, people thought I was like a big husky man for some reason because my name was Purgatory. And it's interesting too. Like people behind me knew me, and I didn't see them for a long time.
So how many of those like books were?
There's a book at every single shelter, which is usually like 5 or 10 miles apart, and then sometimes they're just like random cupboards on the trail that have them. For hygiene, this is a major cause of concern for a lot of people, or just like interest. You generally like the 100-mile wilderness was also the longest I've ever been without like a formal shower. You can bathe, shower in every town that you go to as often as you go into town. So people go into town, like me and Tina, just to shower. Some guys I know would go like literally a month or two without showering. So couldn't be me. But you can also bathe in like lakes or rivers, just like wash off. Technically frowned upon from like leave no trace principles, but if you use like biodegradable soap, it's pretty much fine. Body wipes are pretty common just to get like actual mud off of you at the end of the day. And then I'll cover laundry. Laundry you do in town, it's pretty easy. And a privy and cat holes. This is just like a funny part of the trail. This honestly scared me a lot. A lot of people don't even use these privies because they're kind of scary. So they'll just dig cat holes, which is like literally digging a hole in the ground to poop. Some of them are like actually hilariously bad. Like that one, like there's a lot that are just open to the elements, but no one's really around you often. And because there's so much airflow, like you also throw in like leaves usually. They have a bucket of leaves. You throw that in and it helps decompose, and it doesn't really smell because it's like outdoors. Except for the people going north. There's so many of them. Sometimes there's like horror stories of being like coned with human poop, which is like cones, like full, like. So that's terrifying. Another reason to go southbound. At the end of the 100-mile wilderness is Shaw's. It's a hostel. I'm not going to cover that many hostels, but this one's just one of the most iconic and well-known ones because it's at the end or beginning of the 100-mile wilderness, and so pretty much everyone stays there unless they're going for like a speed time. And they have a gear shop, and so a lot of people stop there to get new stuff. I got a new backpack there because my backpack was shredding my skin off. But there's really cool culture. When I got there was a huge storm that like was making everyone stay at Shaw's because the rivers around the area were impassable, and that was the first time that I started hiking with other southbounders after that because we all kind of got pent up there. I was also there for my birthday, and they made me a cake, which literally was so sweet. And I ended up knowing all of these people super well. Those are the people that worked there, and that was my friend 2 times, Shazam and Market. And we all had trail names, which I'll get to in a little bit. This was me crossing a river, and this is one of my favorite pictures because you can see my friend Market is not doing well back there. But that was kind of the aftermath of some of the storms. Obviously, some of the days they were even higher than that. What we're doing now is generally not advised to be crossing, but we kind of just had to do that or stay in town. Some people, well, Market did get wet. His stuff got wet. Most people use pack liners, which is like a heavy-duty trash bag that they stuff all of their stuff in. I also had dry bags that I stuffed like individual parts of my clothing and things in, especially like technology. But most of the time when you're doing river crossings, you're supposed to keep like your phone and your satellite messenger like on your person. That way, if your pack falls off and flows away, you still have it. And you're also supposed to unbuckle your pack because if you fall, you don't want it to like weigh you down and drown you. You want to just like let it go. But yeah, a lot of just not being dry at all in the northeast. These are just some random pictures of like Maine. This was a grocery run that we did. This is like a hostel fridge. Most of the time it's just trust-based. You leave cash and they have prices for different items. A talenti jar is a very common way for people to eat cold soaked foods like rice or nor pasta sides or ramen or something. This is me eating like a breakfast essentials. And there's huge boulders. That's a big part of the main terrain. And that's me setting up the tent, and that's pretty much my way of life. trail names. Pretty much everyone goes by a trail name if you're a thru-hiker. You're supposed to be given it, usually based off of a funny story or a characteristic. It adds culture and fun, and also adds I can't even say that word, anonymity. That's a tough one. And so if you want to just like redefine yourself and go live in the woods, you can start anew. It's also a lot easier to memorize and just makes it fun. My trail name was Purgatory, and really me and Tina like didn't see anyone for a long time in the beginning, so we were kind of giving each other trail names, which doesn't really follow the rules. But it was basically because I was in a very transitional time of my life in between college and being an adult or working. Also, there was like a lot of highs and lows, and also I just was super injured my first week, and so it felt like I was in purgatory. And I would tell people that that was the average of my like elevation and experience. But I made it to the first town by my birthday. So the Mahoosic Notch is also on like the Maine New Hampshire border, and it's known as the hardest singular mile of the trail, or at least the slowest, because it's pretty much bouldering with a backpack and crawling like an obstacle course. I said imminent death. That's not real, but you could probably drop your gear and like never really see it again. A lot of people lose their trekking poles. It's really cool, like temperature cool, because there's like ice that freezes in between the boulders and doesn't melt because it's really like far down and doesn't get sunlight. And it's like 2-ish hours per mile, and it's only about 1 mile. This is like something that you had to crawl under and through. It's like not great for claustrophobia. I can't even fully encapsulate what it was like. This is a picture from the internet. It's a lot of weird dungeon crawl, and there's more open space things, and it's basically a choose your own adventure. There aren't really many blazes, but there's boulders the size of like school buses, and then there's like little ones, and you have to crawl all through them. These are random pictures of the experience. So for laundry, this was a hotel we stayed at, and your socks like literally get so much mud in them that like I was running them through water for probably 30 minutes, and the water was black. I don't think it ever became fully clear. And when you do your laundry, we would wear our rain gear because you don't have to wash that, and our down puffy because you also don't really need to wash that because it's down, and then like a bandana shirt because everything else you would have to be washing, and you don't have spare clothes for that. And this is me sitting on top of a mountain calling REI to get new shoes because that was the only time that I had service. And my shoes were like fully broken, and I had to sew them up by hand every day. So like that's just the vibe. That was my friend Al Flacco. He was a triple crowner, which means he did all 3 of the major trails in the US. Oh my gosh, if I can get this video to play. This is also just like climbing straight up, if you can't tell. I wonder if nope. This is a video, but that is her sticking her trekking pole straight down. It's just mud. There's videos of people who have fallen into the mud, and it's just slop. And so sometimes you're in there knee deep, and if you slip off of that thing, you're done, you're cooked. That's pretty much everywhere for the first 3 states or so, like Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. It's just bog. And yeah, I don't even know, your shoes, you can't really clean them. After you escape the 100-mile wilderness, you're faced with what's also known as like the other hardest part of the trail, which is the White Mountains. It's the highest mountain range section and the harshest weather conditions and the longest exposed ridgeline. So like you're above tree line, if lightning comes, you just get struck down, and it's about, I think, 12 miles of exposed ridgeline. And it's also considered to be the most difficult terrain section, mainly for the people going north, because that's the first really crazy thing that they hit, versus us. We hit Katahdin, and that's like breaking us in for this. There's a lot of injuries, occasionally death, but that is like not very common. That's mainly from lightning and freezing. It has like, Mount Washington has the lowest temperature ever recorded and the fastest wind speed ever recorded. A lot of people think that it's like at Mount Everest or something, but it's actually at the White Mountains in New Hampshire. And there's really cool huts, which I'll get into in a sec. The huts are like these really fancy cabins that only exist in the White Mountains, and you can do work for stays for them if you are a through hiker, which pretty much means you have to be the first hikers to get there at 4. It's kind of a messed up system. It's at 4 o'clock, and if you're the closest person to arriving at 4, you get the thing. So people would like hide in the woods and then walk in right at 4 to be the person that gets it. Anyways, they make you clean or something. I had to like sweep and like scrape an oven grate one time, and then they let you eat dinner there and sleep on the floor, where everyone else has like a really pretty room because they pay like $500 to stay there. It's like really fancy. That's what it looks like. One of them looks like from the outside. They're usually every like 5 to 10 miles in the White Mountains. The reason that they're super expensive to stay at is because the people who work there have to physically carry all of the supplies, ingredients, laundry up the mountain, and carry trash and stuff down the mountain unless it's compostable. This is an old picture, but they still use the exact same wooden frames and stack up food and supplies as high as they can. And if you can carry 100 pounds, it's called a century run. So they're hiking up some of the hardest mountains in the country with tons of food on their backs for probably like 4 or so miles straight up to get to their huts. Some of them are longer than that, but there's like really cool culture in the huts. It's like a really cool job. You don't get paid a lot, but I've considered doing it because it seems awesome. Another cool thing that happens on trail is trail magic. This is just the name for anything that people kind of give to hikers or anything nice that happens to us. Pretty much anything can make someone's day when they're living in the woods, but most of the times it's food, beer, shuttles, housing, or just like even a water drop that people like will leave carts of water so that you don't have to go thirsty for longer stretches or carry as much. For example, this is a really famous house called the Cookie Lady, and she just makes cookies and leaves them on her porch, and they're really good. This was a house where they leave a freezer full of ice cream and popsicles on their porch, and this person set up a whole tent thing at the base of a mountain for thru hikers. And a lot of people will like look on Facebook to see like where the main crowd is so they can do trail magic, which is kind of another con of the southbounders because it usually follows the big crowd, which is the people going north. But there's a time period where we're all overlapping, so that was when we had the most trail magic.
When you say time period, does this depend on the herd starting at a certain
Yeah, the northbounders usually start around February to March. Because they need to get to Katahdin by October 15th when it closes. And then I had to go southbound because of graduation, because like I wouldn't have made it by then. So most of the time, I think we hit them around Vermont or so because there's like a bubble of people that were all hitting the north by then, and that was like when I was just kind of starting. This was a big purple bus that someone drove up and was making pancakes one day. This outfit I just showed, this picture is just me showing you guys like what I would wear on a day-to-day basis. That was my pack, and they give you a little yellow tag to show that you're a thru hiker. The yellow tag is kind of just so, it's mainly for different places like the Whites and national parks so that they know that like you're a designated thru hiker versus just a regular hiker, because sometimes you get free entrances or like you can do the work for stays. And just so, I think technically you're supposed to have like right of way on the trail. So yeah, I had mine there. And what else? That's just like, there's a lot of bog boards and things like that. They're super treacherous. Most of them are wet and more slippery than the muddy ground. So if it wasn't water, I would literally just walk through the mud because broke a few ankles doing that. Excursions or blue blazing are anything that really isn't technically hiking. Sometimes blue blazes are actual side trails that like go see like a waterfall or something that isn't technically the AT but like walks along it. Or blue blazing can be like hopping off trail to go to Dairy Queen and then getting back where you were and then keep going. But some of my favorite like excursions that I did were stopping in New York City. You're actually pretty close to it at one point, like probably like a 30-minute car ride or train ride. And then we went to this really cool museum in Massachusetts. And it had a bunch of James Turrell art, which I learned a lot about at school. And it was really cool that I would go from living in the actual woods to seeing really, really cool modern art. Animals that I saw on the trail, I saw a ton, but the ones that I had to, the ones that I had to worry about the most were honestly mosquitoes and ticks. I was afraid of Lyme's disease. They weren't really a problem until the south. For some reason, they like don't exist as much in the north. Snakes, I saw a few copperheads, but they only ever are like laying out in the sun on rocks, and like those are not too big of a deal. But I was afraid like getting bit by one, then I'm slowly die in the woods. Like that was scary. Moose, I did see a huge mother moose and a baby moose. But they're massive, and they usually are only out at dawn and dusk, so they're kind of hard to see. So you would have to kind of go out hiking at night to see them. And then some shelters are notorious for mice, and there's also some mice/rats that are notorious for themselves. There's some that are like named. There's one named Ratzilla because it has like stolen people's shoes and like chewed off their hair and weird stuff. And that also wasn't a huge problem for me until the winter. Because in the winter, colder months, they like want to be in the shelter more and like eating your stuff and your food because they need like stuffing for their homes. The Yellow Deli is another really famous just part of the trail, and it's a hostel run by a religious group, and they have stations all over the country and all over the world that are unrelated to thru-hiking, but there's 2 locations that are on the Appalachian Trail, and they're in Vermont and West Virginia. They are very widely known to be a cult, and it's like controversial sometimes to stay there. Like some people are like, oh, I don't like them, they're a cult. But a lot of thru-hikers are like, everything that they offer is free, and I like free things. And they're generally very friendly. They just have a lot of modest values. Sometimes there's controversy about them with like children and women and things like that. But you go there, it's really funny. They make like when you go somewhere and you do your laundry, most places have loaner clothes for you to wear, so you don't have to wear your rain suit and things like that. So I had pictures of me in their like really long. I mean, honestly, I'm wearing a long skirt right now, so I can't even talk badly. But they were bad. The clothes are really bad, and yeah, this is us like trying to make it look better one day, but no. And the men just have normal clothes, so that's just the worst part. Another phrase on the trail that's really common is hiker trash, and this is pretty much any like gross behavior, like loitering or living in squalor / the style of hikers throughout the trail. And it's pretty much just, you got to do what you got to do. And I included some pictures of us being hiker trash. This is us, like, I think we're sitting in this, like, Popeyes probably for, like, 4 hours one day. Like, this is all just sitting on the side of a road. This candy in my bag melted. And, I had to eat it or it's just going to get worse. But pretty much, this is at a state line. Every state line, we would kind of take a break and celebrate to like think about entering a new place. It was an accomplishment. And this is one of Tina's outfits. She had honestly, it's technically not a garbage bag, but this is a garbage bag that she would wear for her rain gear. It was really bad. Some of the challenges, like not like actual difficulty challenges, but like challenges, like fun little games that people would do to kind of entertain themselves while hiking. Some of the big ones are the 4-state challenge, the half-gallon challenge, the Connecticut challenge. I'll go through each of these. The 4-state challenge is hiking from the Pennsylvania border through Maryland, through West Virginia, and Virginia in 24 hours. So you're hitting 4 states in 24 hours. A lot of people try to do this unless they're like pretty old or things like that. Like some of like the retirees aren't doing the 4-state challenge. And the half-gallon challenge is where at the halfway point, which is also around Harper's Ferry, you try to eat an entire half-gallon of ice cream. This one was really hard. I did the 4-state challenge. The half-gallon challenge was harder for me, but some of the big guys really destroyed that. The Connecticut challenge is like, it's a 50, so... Oh, the 4-state challenge is like 50 miles. So the Connecticut challenge is also around 50 miles, and it's the same premise where people try to walk all of Connecticut in one day. 24-24-24 is a drinking-related hiking thing where it's 24 beers, 24 miles, and 24 hours. I did not do that one because it would have killed me, but that's a thing. And then there's also a few different poop challenges where people try to go the entire trail without using any privies, or no, or digging any cat holes. And then some people also try to go through certain states by only pooping a few times. Like Connecticut, people are like, let me go through Connecticut, no poops or something like that. Also didn't really think about that at all, but people do. This is me and my friends doing the half-gallon challenge. Like one person's parents got an Airbnb and we all kind of crashed there one night in Harper's Ferry, which was super cool. And that's the Mason-Dixon line. Super fun. And then this was me after my 4-state challenge, and some of my friends came to visit. And this is where the Appalachian Trail Conservancy is, and that's where you can write your name, and like all the thru-hikers are supposed to pass through there, and they take a picture of you and like put it on their website, and they put it in this little book. And so for every year they have a whole book of everyone's picture, and it says, I think like your hometown, and you can put your email and stuff on it if you want people to be able to contact you. This is another video, and I'm not sure how to even get the videos to start, but this was a video of us finishing the 4-state challenge, and it was a long day, hiking 50 miles / running. Something that we really had to learn how to deal with on trail were like surprise disasters and things like that. For the first time really in the AT history, there was a huge hurricane that struck the South. It was on the news and stuff, but it was a much bigger deal for the people who were in the South at the time and for the people on the trail, because about a third of the Appalachian Trail was severely damaged and just gone, and a lot of the communities that surround the trail, that rely on the trail, were completely washed away, and so either the infrastructure was gone or the trail was gone, and so it was really sad for the communities. And this caused a lot of hikers to just flat out quit, which was really sad, and the damage itself was really devastating. And so we kind of had to take this in stride and decide, like, what are we going to do? It slowed us all down because we were in the Shenandoahs at the time, and we were like, the trail straight up was closed. And so we were like, we don't want to just hike as fast as possible, get there, and then have to be sent home. So we kind of were just hiking like a few miles a day to like give the trail time to open up. But it was really sad. Some of our best friends got off trail. But at this time, the Shellers came and visited me in Shenandoah, which was super fun, and this was a great day for morale because I wasn't even sure if I could finish my thru hike on one of these days. And we all hiked like 15 miles. I'm super proud of all them. It was fun. This was us, like, one part of the Shenandoahs was completely closed down from damage, so I had to like walk on the highway part, which was really pretty actually. And then another river crossing video that I can't play. And then what also came about from this, which was actually really cool, was a lot of people I knew spent some time taking off hiking to volunteer on the trail and cut down trees. And like this was something that like we had never planned on doing, but like you kind of just have to go with the flow, and it was like just felt really like a good thing to do. So there were a lot of volunteers out that would shuttle lots of different locations. Technically not like legal to be like cutting down fallen trees on the trail, but everyone was kind of turning a blind eye because we were helping out. You're supposed to have like a license or something. But I literally was handed a chainsaw and they said, you can just have at it. So we did, and then we would load them up and then drive them away. And the boys that I knew, they were known as the AT handsaw boys because they would carry handsaws, and they spent like a week or 2 weeks volunteering on the trail. I probably only spent like 4 days cutting down trees, but it was rough stuff. The magic of friendship. I hiked with my best friend, and we shared a tent, which we were like, it'll save us so much weight, it'll be awesome. We realized that like not many people do that. Mainly couples, so some people did think we were a couple, which is fine, but yeah, we didn't find any friends that shared a tent beside us, but we had a super awesome tent. It was huge, especially for two like women. I don't know, it wasn't too bad, but it was a super trying test of a relationship. We always were like, if we ever are like gonna be engaged with someone, like thru hiking would be a good test of that relationship, because you have to, especially when you are sharing, agree on a route, agree on what you're doing that day and where you're going, and you're at your most tired, frustrated, anxious, smelliest, ugliest, and so you have to be able to work through stuff because there's not much else out there. But there's some really, really cool times that bond people together, and some really, really awful times that bond people together. So these are just some pictures of like my friends that came out and us doing friend stuff, which was really cool. Oh, Halloween's mixed in here. But yeah, Halloween, like we found a way to dress up, which was really fun. And we did a lot of face paint because we didn't want to have to actually carry costumes. But it was just little things like that that made it really fun.
You taking pictures on your phone?
Yeah, I did have a film camera at one point, which was scary and one of like my luxury items. It was a disposable, so yeah, my camera, and I had like a battery pack. I didn't touch on any of my gear really, but yeah, it's like not that relevant. Because
Well, how did you keep the phone charged from the battery?
yeah, the battery pack that I had lasted about a week or so. It was like 20,000 whatever unit of energy, and yeah, and so it was pretty hefty. Some people use smaller ones, but I don't know. I was afraid of my phone dying and getting lost, so I had a big one. This is us in our tent. This is my friend ended up getting off trail from the hurricane, and they bought an ambulance that they lived out of to do trail magic. So they were crazy. Most of the people were guys. Not that many women. There was one other girl named Shazam that we knew really well, and she was 18. She was badass for that. The little things. I wrote, I'm not even a huge fan of hiking. That's true. I honestly did this because I wanted to challenge myself, and I was really just doing it so that I could meet people, make connections, and experience like the culture of the trail. I think that that's what really made it special to me. If I were to do this completely alone and not see anyone, I would have hated it probably. And so I wouldn't have made it without that. And so like there were just little things that I was taught to appreciate throughout my journey. Like this person gave us what are those called? Floats. And root beer floats, and like that was the coolest thing that had happened to me of the week. My parents came out and brought my dog, and someone also gave me this Mountain Dew. And just like eating and making dinner and sitting around was really special. This like little church building had food in it, which was awesome. This was a video, but it doesn't play. And then this is us at the end. It really did go by faster than you would think. And the Springer finish is kind of anticlimactic. It's this rock on a smaller mountain than most that you go to. And yeah, that's the end. But if you have any questions, I'll answer them. Thank you.
Did you have to change gear when it got colder?
Yes, I changed sleeping bags because I actually started with my dad's sleeping bag from when he hiked the trail, which was probably like 50 years ago. And his was super heavy and not that warm and super huge. So I ordered a new one. I brought in like winter clothing. I was just like, I have really bad warmth. So I brought in a bunch of clothes and extra jackets and stuff and some heat hand warmer stuff that I would put in my sleeping bag at night. And that helped me be warm. But that was the one thing that I, like, once it started getting cold, I was like, I'm done with this. I don't like the cold. So that was rough. Some people liked hiking and sleeping in the cold. I could do that a little bit, but it gets really cold. Yeah. Yes. Did you have a question?
How many people hike the Appalachian Trail every year?
People, starting wise, I think like up to 10,000 people start, and only about 10% of those people finish. But out of the people, like 10,000 or so, I think it's 5 to 10,000. It's gotten more popular the past few years. It gets more popular every year. But out of the people who hike, only about 10% go south, and then there's an even smaller amount of people that finish it going south for some reason. I think it's just because it's a little bit more difficult in the beginning going south. So yeah. Yes.
How much are you emergency cash do people at the end?
I usually carried I started, I think, with like this amount of cash that I didn't get any more cash at the trail, but I think I started with about $200 of cash, and then like, I think I probably had like $50 to $100 at the end. So I pretty much didn't use much cash, but it was good to have.
How
Cool.
did it change your outlook on life, career, etc.?
I really think as far as life, I got back and I was like, I have way too much stuff. Like I lived with just this one bag of crap for 4 or 5 months, and that was my shelter and my clothes. I was like, I have so much of everything, and it really just made me realize that what was more important were just like the people around me, and it's a lot easier to maintain a lifestyle when you have 1.5 outfits. Like just doing my laundry and getting ready was just like super fast and efficient, and like and also that like what else did it teach me about my life? I was supposed to write that in this presentation, but it's kind of rough. I think it's still been kind of early to like really reflect on it a ton, but I think what I like encourage other people to do is that for me it was really scary to like drop all of my like life essentially to do something like this, and I felt like I was gonna get left behind, and like all my friends were gonna be succeeding in their life, and like I was gonna be so behind. But like I really think I'll be fine, and anyone who does this would be fine, and just to kind of take that leap, and yeah, it's worth doing something like that, especially now that we're young. I don't think the times will get easier. Yes.
What was the most interesting thing that like someone that you met on the trail said?
Oh, there were a lot of not creepy people. There were a lot of crazy people. That also, I thought you were gonna say what's the most interesting thing that happened to me. I can also explain one of those stories, but well, if you were just going for straight up crazy, there was this like, we think he had like probably schizophrenia or something, but he was named the Whittler, and he would like leave these really cryptic typed notes that were just like a code of some sort. Like they would have like 100 random words, and like, but he was also like kind of like an alt, so it would be like Kamala vaccine. It would have like random words mixed in, and he would leave them wrapped up in plastic and tied with a string, and then he would leave them under rocks for like 20 miles of trail, just like underneath different items. So this like made all of, like the 20 boys that I was with for like maybe a week, they started just like flipping rocks, and they created a pile of like these 30 cryptic notes, and they were trying to decode it, but it really wasn't that legitimate of any sort. And then they found his Facebook, and he was crazy.
Did you meet him?
Yeah, he also got banned from a lot of establishments for saying that he had dreams of, he had a dream about killing a hiker or something like that. And our friend Market, the same guy who was eating the cheese and the M&Ms, one day, like he got separated from us, and he had no idea about this whole Whittler thing, and he ended up like sleeping in a shelter and was with the Whittler, not knowing that he was a crazy person. And
How did someone just get separated from you?
well, like, because everyone does what they want. Market was a free spirit. He wasn't a free spirit. He was like a really, really smart Dartmouth kid. Anyways, he did what he wanted. He started sleeping next to Whittler, and Whittler's like bludgeoning him with his political beliefs, and Market's just sitting there like survival, smiling and nodding. And this guy's like, "You're just a really, really wise guy, Market." And then we told Market later that this guy was not a safe guy, and he was like, "Well, I think I could tell that." But yeah, that was one of the crazy guys. We also rescued a dog one day on trail, which was like a whole mission that we had to like get off trail, rent a car, drive it to somewhere, come back. That was a crazy story. Yeah. If I try to cover all of them, this presentation would be like 6 months long. So, but yeah, I'll be around if anyone wants to chat about it more. Cool. Thank you.
It's very relaxing.